I've got a bunch of fan art I wanted to show off. These are by 29. It's a small collection. Apparently I've been given a fursona? Not exactly sure what that is, but I like it. You can tell it's me because of the earrings. One thing you have to give to furries: they have great art. I have a Telltale art channel on my Discord, and it seems like 29 and Lily Doodles have gotten themselves into something of a competition to see whose art is the coolest. And the winner is both of you. So thanks 29, and thanks Lily Doodles. Your art is the So back to Jehovah's Witnesses. This is part 2 of my series on leaked Jehovah's Witness videos. Let's get into it.
So brothers, we're almost done. And if you don't mind, I'd like to share what happened with my group. The Monroes asked if I would join them on one of their family worship evenings.
So let's ask our final review question. How can we prepare ourselves for the events that are to come? Sarah?
Okay, notice how this is structured. They're all being super quiet, the husband reads the question, and the family members raise their hands to answer. Just like at meetings, or more accurately, just like the old book study groups from when I was on the inside. The husband runs it and everybody else submits to his leadership.
We want to develop heartfelt obedience to the guidance that we receive now, so that we'll obey any future instructions Jehovah may give us. And so doing this will help us survive Armageddon.
Mm-hmm. Well said.
May I ask Brad a question?
Sure. Go ahead.
Brad, I notice you've really been focused on that picture. Do you mind if I ask what you're thinking about?
God, I love how f***ing plastic this dude is. He's like Mr. Rogers. I did know some people in my congregation who acted like this, but he's overly plastic. It's terrible. If you notice, most Jehovah's Witness videos are like that. Now, about the video. He just noticed this kid staring at this picture of Armageddon taking place. Pretty horrific stuff. So let's see what they tell the kid.
Well, will the brothers tell us how to fight the people who will be attacking us?
We won't need to do any fighting.
Now what will we need the instructions for? Are we just gonna stand there and do nothing?
We don't know what those instructions will be, son.
Brad, when Armageddon comes, we'll have nothing to worry about. And we won't have to fight. We know that because of what Jehovah has done for his people in the past.
So they're basically saying that they're pacifists, no fighting. But I feel like they should point out that there's a big difference between the Great Tribulation and Armageddon. They believe that the Great Tribulation is where Jehovah's Witnesses will be hunted and persecuted and banned all over the world. That's what they're depicting in their bunker video. And the fact that Russia banned Jehovah's Witnesses doesn't help their persecution complex. So that's the Great Tribulation. Armageddon happens after the Great Tribulation, and from my understanding, they basically believe that the 144,000 anointed Jehovah's Witnesses are going to be raptured to heaven instantly and become angels and go around slaughtering all 7 billion non-Jehovah's Witness people on the planet. Birds will eat the dead bodies afterwards. That's what they believe, and presumably God will give instructions to the non-anointed governing body member helpers, which they then pass down to the sleeper cells of Jehovah's Witnesses about what they should do and where they should go, that kind of thing. Okay, let's continue.
I'd like to show you an account. In 2 Chronicles, chapter 20. It was a time when Moabites and Ammonites started the war against the land of Judah, who's been ruled by King Jehoshaphat. Some of those Israelites were likely anxious, just like you. Jehoshaphat gathered Judah at the temple and began to inquire of Jehovah. And Jehovah caused a Levite named Jahaziel to give an answer that gave everyone courage.
What did he say?
Do not be afraid or be terrified because of this large crowd. For the battle is not yours, but God's. You will not need to fight this battle. Take your position, stand still, and see the salvation of Jehovah in your behalf.
Okay, so he says they know how Armageddon is going to play out based on how one battle played out in one book, in one chapter of the Bible. I can think of plenty other examples where God told the people to go into the encampment and break shit and blow loud horns to scare them off. How do they know that's not what's going to happen instead? I think that's a little bit of a leap on their part. Whatever, let's continue.
Jehovah turned the enemies against each other. By the time the Israelites arrived, not one soldier was left. It was obvious that Brad's courage was strengthened after reviewing this Bible account. And I'm happy to say that after our discussions, the friends in our group are more aware of how their own acts of courage now will help them be courageous in the future. Enough from me. It's your turn, Albert.
And there's a throwback to the last video, where the chick had to find the courage to say gay people were filthy sinners and all that shit. Wow, that's sure courageous. I look at this stuff and it makes me sick. I believed it at one point. It's so strange to hear the things coming out of their mouths and be able to view it from the perspective of a Jehovah's Witness. Since this video is all about Armageddon, I figured I'd take the opportunity to read some questions about Armageddon from the Jehovah's Witness website. Check this out. The article is called, "What is the Battle of Armageddon?" They have some questions here. The first one is, who will fight at Armageddon? Here's what they say about it. Jesus Christ will lead a heavenly army to victory over God's enemies. These enemies include those who oppose God's authority and who treat God with contempt, i.e. literally everybody who isn't an active Jehovah's Witness. Here's the next question. Will Armageddon literally be fought in the Middle East? A lot of religious extremists in the US believe that Armageddon is going to start in the Middle East. That's probably why they put that question in there. Here's their answer. No, rather than being restricted to one area, the Battle of Armageddon will encompass the whole earth. I love how certain they are. They're just explaining this shit as though it's fact. Obviously, the Bible doesn't say anything about where it's going to take place, or how it's going to happen, or there wouldn't be hot debate over it. Ooh, this looks interesting. When will Armageddon take place? Here's what they say. When discussing the Great Tribulation that culminates in the Battle of Armageddon, Jesus said, "Concerning that day and hour, nobody knows, neither the angels of the heavens nor the Son, but only the Father." Nevertheless, the Bible does show that Armageddon takes place during Jesus' invisible presence, which began in 1914. Does it? Does the Bible show that Armageddon takes place during Jesus' invisible presence, which began in 1914? Now seems like the ideal time to talk about the second generation teaching. Basically, they believe that Jesus came back invisibly in 1914, and there's this verse in the Bible that says something about the generation of that time won't pass away before Armageddon takes place. Jehovah's Witnesses assume that you have to be anointed before 1914 to count toward that generation. So what they did was they found the one guy who was anointed before 1914, which was Fred Franz, anointed in 1913. They assumed that Armageddon was going to happen before this dude died. Unfortunately for them, he died in 1992. So they had to change the word generation to mean not generation. They said anybody who was anointed before Fred Franz died in 1992 is part of the same generation. So basically they just redefined the word generation to mean contemporary. Long story short, the best they've got is a governing body member who was anointed right before Fred Franz died, and he was like 27 at the time. So they have about 30 more years before they have to change the teaching again. I've talked about this at length with some other ex-Jehovah's Witnesses, and there's kind of a debate about whether or not they're going to get rid of the teaching completely, or if they're going to change the definition of generation again. Anyways, that's all I've got for you. Follow me on Twitter, Patreon, Discord, and Facebook. Thanks for watching, guys.